like for the most part, people feel like this has been a successful Mavericks offseason already. I'm in that category. I know there are some who don't like the Clay move, but I feel like a lot of people are like, hey, good job.
Can I throw this out for the Clay move? I saw yesterday, and I was like, Isaac? I was like, no way this is the Jonathan Isaac.
Oh, it is the Jonathan Isaac. I can't believe the money he got.
Just to give you an idea of the marketplace today, or you can look at the kid Patrick Williams for Chicago.
Yeah. And he got 18.
Yeah, 18 to around this number, 5 years, $84 million for Jonathan Isaac, who last year averaged under 7 points and under 3 rebounds. So the marketplace is, if you wanted, like, let's say, a younger player, I think the Mavericks getting a guy who hasn't done much, but very similar to those two guys, at least, why am I drawing a blank? Najee Marshall. Like, those guys cost $13 to $20 million a year. Guys that average about 6 to 8 points a game and about 3 to 4 rebounds a game. Those guys cost about the same that you paid Klay Thompson.
Yeah, the Jonathan Isaac deal, when I saw it, I thought that was outrageous. Now,
there's no cronuts?
No, Mike.
Who said that?
Is going to be very sad.
Whoa. Show over. Reggie, you said there's going to be cronuts downstairs.
I'm talking to somebody from the 770 on the text line who said they supposedly were delivered. So I'm
to what address?
I will go down that rabbit hole. I will take that on my plate.
All right. And
I'm furious right now.
I know, and I realized this about 30 seconds before you did when I saw the look of thumbs down. There's no cronuts in the lobby, and I was like, oh, this is going to be problematic. Because as we've talked about, Mike is in the last week has discovered cronuts.
Last Friday.
And how awesome they are.
I didn't discover them. Corey discovered them.
But you finally discovered what they were.
It's the first time ever, and I think Big Donuts are in big trouble.
Yes.
I will repeat myself. Cronuts are unbelievable. And then I just got super excited because Atolo said they had brought us cronuts, and they lied.
I think where the conundrum is going to lie is they might have gotten delivered at 8:30 this morning, and perhaps the morning show absconded with them, or somebody else took them before.
All right. I am on the case, gentlemen.
Okay, let us know. Now,
you can well, donuts stores are probably closed now.
I'm not sure. We'll look into that.
Great.
Oh, look, we will really try to.
All right, fine. Let's just talk sports.
That person, by the way, is very, very sure that they're like, I'm not lying. I sent them up there, and I believe them.
And so, yeah, Sean and RJ deserve cronuts.
I don't think that he really believes they do.
No, they don't.
He most definitely does not. Okay, what can the Mavs still do with where they're at right now? So the tax threshold is $170.8 million. And I'll try to limit the math because I realize, Mike, it's an important part of the conversation.
Watching Bobby Marks on ESPN, this is so important, but it is very tough to understand.
Complicated. The Mavericks right now are projected at about approximately $175 million in salary. And now you might be like, oh, that's over the tax threshold. That's true. But you don't get to the first apron yet. And the thing with the first and second apron that teams are terrified of is if you get to the second apron, if you're not hard capped, then the taxes become outrageous on, when you would hear like, hey, the Warriors, by drafting and signing James Wiseman, they're paying him $35 million a year. That's because of all the additional taxes that you would have to pay on players over the first apron.
Let's just say Kevin Durant said, screw it, I want to go play with LeBron. I can't believe nobody wants to go play with this guy. I want to go play.
Yes.
Because LeBron signed his contract, they literally cannot trade for him. It's impossible. So you start running into situations where if you go past the second apron, you can't do that's your team. I don't want to say you can't do anything, but it makes it close to impossible to do anything. So that second apron is like, you better love your team because making transactions is pretty much over for your organization.
Now, for the Mavericks, you can still sign your second round pick. We've had discussions about whether he'll be stashed away for a little bit or whatever. And also, I believe they have I don't know if it's the biannual exception, but they have an exception of $4.4.
Yeah, that's the biannual.
$million.
And they do have that available?
They do have that available.
Okay.
To still try and make a move. So there's a variety.
But that would take them over an apron that they might not want to go to?
That is true, because then they would be $1.3 million over that apron. And you might be thinking, oh, $1.3 million is not the end of the world for an owner. But that's the thing. that's where the taxes start to, I don't know if exponentially increase, but they increase at a very rapid rate.
And at the aprons, honestly, it's really less about the taxes themselves, especially once we start talking about like that super class of NBA owner that's now there. It's more about the prohibitions that they put on team building.
Yes.
And I think that's what Nico Harrison was talking about when in his exit interview, somebody was like, do you think that this new ownership will be willing to pay? He's like, money is not the issue. It's doing it the right way. And I think what he was alluding to is making sure that you still have avenues available to make moves, because if you, like Mike said, if you get over certain aprons, it really undercuts your ability to do very much of anything.
You can also get penalized as draft picks. I know that is something that they put in there as well. And so we didn't get a chance to talk about this name yesterday. I know Dennis Smith Jr. came up and essentially you're like, hey, that's great. Buddy Hield already on the move. Probably wasn't going to happen anyway. Does Spencer Dinwiddie move the needle for you at all? Because that's somebody that obviously we talked about on the buyout market, ended up going to the Lakers. There's still discussion that he's thinking about those two teams.
If he has no problem watching 50 games this year and not playing 1 second, I'm all for it.
Okay.
But he went to the Lakers, who were a worse team with less talent and less depth and couldn't get into their games for the most part. So I need to know where he is at. Is he okay sitting next to Dwight Powell for the majority of games?
Yeah. Is there, let me ask you this. Is there a, I'm going to say position, knowing like what the NBA is now. Is there a position or style of player that you think would not necessarily just get the fate of, barring injuries, you're just sitting? Like, is there somebody who could really be a rotation-ish person?
If you could find a dude who's 6'9", 6'10", who can guard 1 through 5. Those are very tough.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you who can, for the most part. Maxi Kleba can, and he's the only guy, and I already know he's going to miss 40 games next year.
So when people talk about moving away from him, then you're like,
you don't really have a guy to replace that 6'9", 6'10" guy who can play that position. Look, is he limited? Yeah, he's a limited player. That's why he only makes $11 million in the game. But if you could find another 6'9", 6'10" guy, because Najee Marshall, if I have his height right, is 6'7".
Or 6'6", I thought.
Grimes is 6'4", 6'5". You just start looking at, you know that Klay Thompson's 6'6", so you kind of look at all these guys. I like all these guys, and these guys are going to be part of your rotation, but they're all kind of around that 6'6" marker, where, man, having a 6'9", 6'10" guy like McDaniels for Minnesota, obviously we're not getting him, but like that would be a guy who'd be like, dude, if you could add a guy like him who's like 6'9" and a really nice wing player who can guard a lot of positions, that would be a guy who would immediately enter into your 20 to 30 minute rotation. But right now, I don't have a name for you, but that would be the one guy. That's why, like, when Jonathan Isaac got $84 million, he got that money only because he's 6'10" and athletic. Literally, that's the only thing he is.
Yeah, I remember that draft, and I said, if you told me he would end up as the biggest bust in this class, in this lottery, I would believe it. But if you told me somehow he turned out to be the best player, I might listen to that as well. But yeah, he had a lot of bust potential on him, and I'm not saying he's a terrible player. He just got a contract extension. I just don't really get that particular contract extension. All right.
Or Patrick Williams.
Yeah, $18 million for him as a whole per year.
That's based off of potential. It's not based off of anything they've done.
Do you anticipate then, I guess, any sort of move like that? Because it feels like probably not, if that's what you're looking for. So do we still think there are going to be more move-ins and shake-ins in the Mavs offseason, or do you think this is pretty much going to be it?
Yeah, I think this is it.
Okay.
Because let me bring up a name that I don't think is going to find minutes, but a guy who fits the category that I'm saying is Omax Prosper.
Well, and somebody goes, what about Omax? Like, you can project that, but you haven't seen it on any level of consistent basis.
Yeah, he in his junk minutes, he did not impress at all. You know who did is Jaden Hardy. Jaden Hardy impressed so much in junk minutes in one game that he became part of your playoff rotation and actually showed valuable minutes in the playoffs at times. Other times he didn't. Other times like, we got to get him off the court, this and that. But Omax is a guy who hopefully in summer league and throughout this off season, which is a short off season, can develop into, hey, maybe we could play him. Dorian Finney-Smith was worse than him his rookie year, but he was on a horrible team. So you're like, who cares? Play him. Same with Maxi Kleber. Who cares? He sucks. Play him. And they ended up being on such a bad team, the Dallas Mavericks, that they were both able to develop into really nice, usable pieces on teams. But the tough thing about Omax Prosper is the Mavericks are trying to win 52 to 60 games this year. They're trying to be a top 3 seed. And that makes it really tough to just throw Omax Prosper out there for 15 minutes a night, no matter what.
And to a certain extent, extend out the minutes of Jaden Hardy. Like, I know he can get 15 minutes, and you saw it in the playoffs as well, but there were definitely times when they were like, he might have a lot of potential, but he has some frustrating plays that made it seem like Jason Kidd's like, I can't risk it.
Yeah, and he's only 6'3" and needs to be at times a ball handler, and he's better as an off-ball guard. And at 6'3", that does work with Luka, but then he works better with Kyrie because the speed and tempo that Kyrie plays at, and when Kyrie's off the court, the speed and tempo that Luka plays at isn't beneficial at times to Jaden Hardy, but that's the best combo of their sizes and abilities, is to have Hardy and Luka on the court at the same time, because he can cover up for the size of Hardy, and then Hardy can cover up for the lack of speed of Luka, possibly defensively. But that's a guy that I look at, and I know that maybe this isn't the topic, but I'm like, yeah, I don't think they should do anything else, because I want Hardy to get minutes. I don't want another. Not that I don't want Dennis Smith Jr. I'm not saying I don't want him, but I want Hardy playing over Dennis Smith Jr. if they were both on the team.
Yeah, and I might kind of feel that a little bit about whatever move you might make that would stop the potential for Omax Prosper, just because I do kind of want to see it. I realize it's hard to push forward both of those players to the next level in the same season, where you just came off the finals when you didn't use either one of them like a whole ton. But, man, if Omax Prosper could come through into any semblance of what we hope he can be, that feels like that would be a huge deal for the Mavericks. It would be huge. This year.
And I'll tell you what, I won't put it past Nico. Nico getting Jaden Hardy with the 37th overall pick. Nico getting cronuts. We got him. Okay, I'll concentrate. I promise. There's 2 more minutes so I can dig in.
I can tell you coming up next is going to be my alone interview with Bruce Bochy, because it's going to be cronut time.
I forgot we were interviewing Bruce Bochy coming up.
Oh, my God.
All right, so we got to get out of here soon. But I will say, what Nico has done with his draft pick so far, Derek Lively doing very little at Duke to prove he's a 10 or 12 overall pick. I know he ended up going 12. The Mavericks would have taken him 10.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about the Oklahoma City. Guess what? If Oklahoma City would have said, we're taking Derek Lively,
then the Mavericks
wouldn't have traded. Yeah. They would have just taken Derek Lively at 10. They knew who was going 10 and 11 if they traded to 12. So, anyways, Nico has done a tremendous job with limited draft assets so far. So I'm not going to put it past him that Omax does have ability. It just wasn't able to shine in year one, and he wasn't ready to shine in the NBA in year one.
The KNC masterpiece right here on 105 through the Fan.
Real quick, can I shout out the 770 for helping Mike out and obviously taking him away from last segment in some ways?
You're the best. Whatever your name is, you're awesome.